A push for peace and reforms in the international financial system. We will take a look at the BRICS Kazan Declaration. Hello, I'm Anton, and this is The Heat. On the second day of the BRICS Summit in Russia, the leaders of developing countries issued the Kazan Declaration. It outlines common goals on global issues with more cooperation to de-escalate conflicts and work on creating a more equitable international financial system. Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed the importance of the bloc in ensuring world peace. We begin with this report from CGTN's Zhao Yunfei.
A new family photo with leaders representing the world's top emerging economies. In the first summit after BRICS welcomed 5 new members, President Xi Jinping called on all parties to make the right choices and promote world peace.
The more tumultuous our times become, the more we must stand firm at the forefront, exhibiting tenacity, demonstrating the audacity to pioneer, and displaying the wisdom to adapt, so as to jointly open up a new chapter to the high-quality development of the greater BRICS cooperation.
President Xi stressed 5 key areas of development under the BRICS, including cooperation in security, innovation, sustainable development, global governance, and people-to-people exchanges.
Today we saw Xi Jinping. He is a great man. The Chinese leader's participation is very important. China plays a very important role in BRICS.
China has been playing an active role in recruiting new members to BRICS. And now, with a greater BRICS, President Xi Jinping said China is committed to collaborating with other parties to kickstart a new era for the Global South. The BRICS member countries now share 45% of the world's total population, and its GDP has increased to around 35%. President Xi said the increase is a landmark event in the evolution of the international situation. China calls on all parties to contribute to the high-quality development of BRICS cooperation and push forward for a community with a shared future for mankind. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, Kazan.
Earlier this year, 4 countries joined the BRICS: the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Iran, and Egypt. Egypt's president this Wednesday said that BRICS is set to strengthen a multipolar international system. Earlier, I spoke with Nabil Fahmy, who is the former Egyptian foreign minister, and I started by asking him about the importance of Egypt joining the bloc.
As a medium-sized country, it is imperative for us to have multiple choices in whatever we do, be that politics, economics, trade, you name it. So having an increased number of groupings that are of economic background, not only of the industrialized states like G7 and so on, is important. That's the first priority. The second priority is what the president referred to. Developing countries are, if you want, in a late state of development. We all live on one planet, but the industrialized world were able to move more quickly at the beginning, and now are a step or 2 ahead. The reality is we all now face the same global problems, including pandemics, climate change, and you name it. And when you come and tell the world to have an equitable share in the solution, that's not fair, because the problem was created by the developed world, and it involves also the developing world. I understand, and the president understands, that we all need to cooperate on this. We can't ignore the issue of climate change. That's why he was referring to the fact that it's important to find financing to help the developing countries work with the rest of the world and then take compatible steps that serve everybody, but also respond to their own development needs.
BRICS is sometimes seen as an alternative bloc to what we call the West, those countries that have set the international agenda until the last decade or so. They've been doing so since the end of World War II. How important is it for BRICS to act as a kind of balance to other more Western-focused groups, like, say, for instance, the G7? And does it give the South, the global South, a bigger voice?
We hear this accusation frequently, but why wasn't the G7 considered to be anti-South or anti-developing countries? Why is it that when we do something, it's considered to be anti-West? We're not looking for an anti-anybody group. We're trying to work together as much as we can and to ensure that we and others have multiple options. That's the real project that we are here. There will be some points in tension here and there, and that consequently will lead us to expedite certain things. And I'll give you an example on this. There's no question that there are international concerns about the application of financial sanctions, direct and indirect sanctions. When you apply these sanctions, even though you're not a sanctioned country, it makes the process of dealing with others much more cumbersome and much more difficult. So again, this is more opportunity for us to be better partners in the global environment. It's not anti-anybody, but yes, it is an attempt to have a more equitable share and a fair balance sheet.
Right, and I presume a country like Egypt doesn't want to have to be put into the situation where it has to choose sides.
No, we will not choose sides. We will deal with everybody. We will call on everybody to apply the same principles and the same standards in international relations, whichever the issue or the event. And I refer here Ukraine and Gaza as two examples where the same principles should be applied. But that being said, no, we are not anti-anybody. We are pro-Egypt, and we want to work with everybody in accordance with international law.
Right, and looking at international financial architecture, you talked about it a moment ago. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion on the use of digital currencies, local currencies, to settle trade deals between BRICS member states. Now, during his speech, President Sisi underscored the importance of moving towards this goal, to move away from one currency in particular, the United States dollar. How important is that for developing countries?
Well, let me put it this way. On the one hand, the reality is world trade is led by the American and the Chinese economies. And they are almost interdependent, very difficult to de-link. And presently, these two countries lead the economies, but most of the trade is happening in dollars. So moving away from one currency will take a long time. And if you do it suddenly, you will have disruptions that will be very consequential for everybody. That being said, why is it important if a country like my own is trading with a small or medium-sized African country that our financial transactions go through New York? It doesn't make sense. It adds cost, it adds time, and it may end up creating or getting caught again in a sanction atmosphere that is caused by conflicts that have nothing to do with my country or the other country involved. So yes, we want more options, not alternate options.
This BRICS summit is taking place at a time of rising global tensions. The Chinese President Xi Jinping, he addressed leaders and called on the BRICS members to act as guardians of common security and work on the de-escalation of the Ukraine crisis as soon as possible. Brazil and China have proposed a peace plan to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict that was presented to the United Nations. Do you in the future see more political cooperation, perhaps diplomatic cooperation among BRICS states?
I would hope so. It won't necessarily be unanimous among all of them on all the issues. But yes, I think medium-sized states should find vehicles for their voice to be heard more and more. And I also believe that as we complain legitimately that the world order was established by the post-World War II victors and that order has changed now. The reality has changed. As we complain about that, it's important for us to put thoughts on the table. Now, in the case of BRICS, we have two major powers as well in the group, but why not? We will also be talking to others outside of BRICS, including the U.S., with our ideas. But I support intensive diplomacy in this very difficult, dangerous time of acute, direct conflict between major players, be that in Ukraine or in Gaza and Lebanon.
Right. Now, if we look at trade among BRICS states, I mean, just look at trade between Egypt and BRICS countries during the first 8 months of 2024. It increased 15%. That's compared to the same period in 2023. Those figures from the Egyptian Statistics Agency. What is the potential for increased trade among BRICS countries?
It's an excellent question, and the answer really is just follow the growth of the BRICS economies. The largest, if not largest or second largest economy in the world is China. The country talked about to be the up and coming major economic power is India. They're both there. The largest economies in Africa are Egypt and South Africa. They're both there. And of course, we have Brazil and Argentina in Latin America. And I'm not going to skip Russia, but I'm just giving you examples of those who weren't at the top of the list economically in the past. They're all in BRICS. So I think that's very important. I would argue also that if you look at the Middle East economic register or digest, you will see that the Middle East is trading more and more with China. So the trend is there.
Minister, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
To continue our discussion, let's bring in our panel from Beijing. Huiyao is founder and president of the Center for China and Globalization and former counselor for the China State Council. Here in our studio, Anton Fedyashin is a professor of history at American University, and from Sao Paulo, Gilson Schwartz is a professor of economics at the University of Sao Paulo. Welcome to all of you. Huiyao, let me start with you. In Beijing, the Chinese President Xi Jinping, he addressed leaders in Russia at BRICS on Wednesday. He called for greater cooperation among member states, expansion of the group, and strengthening of the new development bank. This was an important BRICS meeting. You know, as our reporter pointed out, this is a group that represents 45% of the world's population, 35% of its GDP. This is the new expanded BRICS that we are talking about. What do you think of the group's priorities, particularly those outlined by President Xi?
Yes, thank you. I think this BRICS Summit happen currently is really very significant because it's the first time that we had a greater BRICS now. It has doubled almost since last time, since last year. I think this represents a new global platform, complementary platform actually, to really to represent the emerging countries and developing countries' interests. And it's so important that developing countries are really tired of those geopolitical polarization, and also we're seeing constant conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, and then we're getting into the unstable world. And then that's really all the emerging countries, developing countries are worried about. And here is the new platform where they are promoting economic globalization, promoting the development, promoting the green development, and also digital development and peace. So, where is that there is an addition to what existing system in the world. We're not just getting 80 years of Bretton Woods system, but that system probably needs to be enhanced. And I see BRICS actually getting 15 years of establishment, and then this system is really great to that's representing the multipolar world that we are talking about so much. I think that basically this time there's so much things can be done, and also this BRICS platform can be treated as an incubation or experiment platform, so that there'll be more testing of the payment system, digital in development, and of course work out some common denominators, like alternative payment system and things like that.
Right.
So that, we can supplementary and strengthen the multipolar world we're living now.
Gilson, Schwartz, one of the recurring themes we've heard come out of this BRICS summit, we've heard it from the leaders at the summit, we've heard it from their spokespeople as well as analysts, is the need for a new international financial system. President Xi called on BRICS members to take the lead in promoting what he called a better alignment of the international financial system. And we're already seeing that in BRICS. As I mentioned earlier on, many BRICS countries now conduct trade among themselves in their local currencies or in digital currencies. How significant is that, and where do you see it going?
Well, I think that we can learn from the Bretton Woods experience. That means that a financial system, especially in the international order, really depends on direct investment flows. That's the heart of the matter. It's not an accountancy issue. It's not just a matter of issuing new currencies or even creating new banks. All these are necessary steps, but what's really fundamental here is that we need a new horizon for investments, like the Silk Road, big projects that are global in perspective, and then the investment, direct investment that actually changes the economic structure, that will bring sound innovations for the financial system. Otherwise, it's just like bubbles. Again, people hoping for something in the long term, but what we really need now is a global pact for new investment, especially using South-to-South relationships.
Right, there's been one other development, Gilson, and that is, we're hearing these discussions on reducing reliance on the United States dollar as a reserve currency. Here's the Russian finance minister, Anton Siluanov, talking about that. Let's watch.
We see that the payment system has recently become politicized. Western countries restrict payments and money transfers through banks. Therefore, in order to ensure the independence and stability of our trade relations, there is a question of creating our own settlement system.
So looking at that, how realistic is that in the short term, and what do you think is the ultimate goal?
Well, I think that reforming the monetary system requires political wisdom and political strength. Unfortunately, we cannot do it under present circumstances because of the very intense conflicts and, of course, the opposition, the contradictory relationship that, on the one hand, they can't delink. On the other hand, they have to between the US and China. I mean, this is structural. It was very well noted by our Egyptian speaker just a few moments ago, sorry. So we need a new political pact for peaceful investment, for a new economic structure.
Yeah.
It's really risky to move on with new financial institutions if the security issue that was mentioned by the president, by the Chinese president, if the security issue is not solved.
Right.
So it's not really a purely financial matter. It involves geopolitical issues. And what's important, people-to-people relationship. Yeah. We are now witnessing an unprecedented wave of migrants, refugees. Yeah. So we have to build for all these people, especially children, people that are suffering with bombardments, with wars. So we need a new hope in terms of direct investment and a geopolitical balance. That's what I think China is bringing to the table.
Yeah, in fact,
stress targets related to digital
President Xi has consistently
sustainability.
Yeah, President Xi has consistently emphasized the importance of people-to-people exchanges. Well, let's bring it to the studio to Anton. Anton, great to see you here in person. In my discussion there, my conversation with the former Egyptian foreign minister, I asked him about, BRICS being seen as a counter to Western dominance, on the international, drawing up the international agenda. The director of the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center in Berlin, Alexander Gabuev, says BRICS is the most potent representative structure of this new world order. How do you see it?
Well, I agree with Alexander. He's right. It is a very potent symbol, and on the graph that plots the world's path to multipolarity, there are already many points, and Kazan will be a fatter dot rather than the smaller ones that preceded it. But he's right in the sense that BRICS is the outline of the coming of multipolarity. This is going to be the institution that is going to slowly give shape to the new nodes of this non-Western but alternative system. So we're looking literally at the birth of a new world order where we're at a moment where we're touching a world that came before and a world is approaching. Periods of transition in history are best romanticized after they've passed, but when you're living through them, they're full of uncertainty and instability. That's what we're going through. But a lot of what Gilson actually just mentioned, I saw reflected in the Kazan Declaration that was issued today. It's a fairly long document.
Right.
It is both detailed in some places, but also sufficiently broad and conceptual in others, both in terms of financial restructuring, but also the importance of people-to-people contacts, cultural communication, and an entire panoply of things that every single government deals with. So yes, BRICS is emerging. It is now becoming a reality, and it is becoming a very serious alternative to the West's global hegemony. And you can tell by the long line of nations that are standing, waiting for a form of partnership and ultimately membership.
Right. And one of the key issues that BRICS has been looking at, as we've talked about, is an alternative currency for trade, an alternative reserve currency. And I'm wondering to what extent, that sort of focus on an alternative currency was sharpened quite a lot in the aftermath of the sanctions that was imposed against Russia.
Right. So you're bringing up a very important aspect, Anand. So let's separate a few things here, because I get the sense that they're often conflated, especially in Western reports, and I'm sure we'll see this after the summit ends. I expect to see gleeful articles about the failure to agree on a joint new BRICS currency. But that goal was never set by the BRICS. Ultimately, it will probably come to that. But what the BRICS are talking about now, and I just looked at the document today, they're using the term interbank cooperation mechanism. That term will probably change 10 times in the next 5 years. The point is that they are first trying to establish a bank-to-bank linkage, a link, so that central banks can talk to each other between Beijing and, let's say, Cairo directly without going through New York or London, for that matter, mostly New York. Moscow can speak to New Delhi, so on and so forth. That's going to be the first step. Vladimir Putin already said right before the summit began that a new currency is not really on the table right now. Ultimately, it probably will become so. So these are very slow, deliberate steps. No one's out to break their own necks by charging against windmills and sort of creating pie in the sky goals and then failing to achieve them, and then, having their hands fall down with desperation. This is a slow process. Just as an historical comparison, look, what we know as the EU today, with its own currency, started out as the European coal and steel community back in 1952. It was only in 92, 40 years later, that the EU came about, and then slowly it's been introducing its currency, which is not, by the way, shared by all of its members to this day. This is a slow, gradual process. What we're seeing is the beginning, and the real novelty here is that if 5 or 6 years ago someone asked either of us, how is de-dollarization coming, people would laugh us out of the studio. No one's laughing anymore. So this is irreversible, but it will be a slow process.
Right. Wang Huiyao, as the Egyptian foreign minister pointed out, BRICS is not an anti-West bloc. It's not an adversarial group. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he said he wants to describe BRICS as not being anti-West, but being non-West, as he put it. How do you see the BRICS relationship with the Western world unfolding?
Well, I think this is a really a great platform. Actually, it's a strong add-on to the current global order, basically. I mean, we are talking about we're getting into a multipolar world.
Yeah.
And this represents a strong polo. I mean, that's for fact. And also, it's first time, you know, for a country of 10, basically the largest emerging economy in the world to get together and then talk about their future, talk about their planning. It actually makes positive contribution to the world development, and also it's actually you know, give people some new hope. It's like you know, we are seeing a lot of things going on the geopolitical front, but we're seeing a lot of lines, you know, for example, build up now.
Right.
NATO has been expanded. You know, they have AUKUS, they have Quad, they have Camp David. You have many those circles, but then there's no economic circle. There's no economic club. I mean, you know, BRICS represent a huge economic club, a huge growth, and also this platform is calling for development.
Yeah.
It's really
okay.
So
we are rapidly running out of time. I want to get round to the other two guests very quickly. Anton, briefly, you know, the Chinese President Xi Jinping said the group should seek de-escalation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, if we look at BRICS, it's a very diverse group. I mean, it's politically diverse, it's ideologically diverse, it's geographically diverse, it's literally all over the world. I mean, could you see it come together as a diplomatic force?
As a diplomatic force, probably eventually, yes. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is an economic forum. Yes. It is informal. It has no headquarters, no permanent staff. This is a place for people to meet. The Russians, by the way, again, the document today was remarkably, how should I put it, diplomatic on the issue of Ukraine in favoring a diplomatic solution. Let's see how it goes, but the Russians have welcomed all participation in mediating this war.
Okay, Gilson, Schwartz, very quickly, I've just got about a minute left. BRICS brings together some of the world's biggest energy producers and consumers. Now, Saudi Arabia was issued an invitation to join BRICS. It's not responded to that yet. We'll probably soon hear from Saudi Arabia. But if and when Saudi Arabia does become a member, then BRICS members will account for 43% of the world's output of crude oil. China, of course, is one of the biggest consumers of crude oil. How significant is that?
I think this is a key element, energy and the environment, as well as technologies to deal with the environment and build up a new development model that is not as destructive as we have seen in the Western models. So energy-saving technologies, environmental friendly, that means also people-friendly technologies are the hope for a new model, new development model, sustainability, and then geopolitical security.
Okay, and that is where we have to leave it. Thank you to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anton in Washington, D.C.